This is an area that many of you in the room and around the world lament, that we're not moving fast enough to provide technology to students. I just came from India this morning. In India in 1950, there was a renovation or a revolution around education access in the country. At that time, about 20 million young people were in primary and secondary education. It's more than 10 times that by 1994. And indeed, the generation of students in India, in sub-Saharan Africa, that we're living in today are the most educated in the history of the countries that we represent. But that has created another challenge, which is access to jobs. And increasingly, the gap between youth unemployment in countries that are solving the access problem in classrooms is growing. Technology is a problem on both ends. Technology is changing the way in which the economy works and the jobs that are available and increasingly requiring more skills in the classroom. To respond to that, many leaders see technology as an answer. In some cases, it's really an excuse or a scapegoat, perhaps, about why things aren't changing fast enough, why we're leaving girls out of the equation, or in many cases, a political chip to help failed schools. Many leaders, government officials, they use technology access to provide hope for a failing education system. We'll just buy computers is a common reality that exists around the world. Too often that leads to teachers who are unprepared, students who don't have the skills to think differently, and an education system in many ways that's just automating a system for hundreds of years in place. In many cases, those countries are going to be further behind. And I meet with many government officials who are trying to buy computers for all their students, and I tell them, when you finish that project, you will be further behind the leading education thinking in countries around the world because of the way in which you're preparing students for the future. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and I travel to about 30 to 40 countries a year. I was just in Nairobi last week meeting with many, many officials and ministers across Africa. And I can tell you the biggest challenge, the biggest gap that we have to find is empowering youth. And that's not only through education in the traditional ways, but the way in which students feel about their future. One of the things that I know from the work that I do supporting teachers, school leaders in schools, is that we have lots of students who walk into school, walk into classrooms, not knowing what their future holds, but because of where they are, their economic conditions, maybe their gender, they don't walk into a school believing they can be anything. And if we solve that one problem, having a student walk into a school, walk into wherever they are, and believe that they can have a bigger future, that they have a right to think bigger, to dream bigger, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless of their gender, regardless of their economic conditions, we empower students in a new way. We see this struggle from a very real perspective in the technology area for companies like Microsoft, who are hungry to find people to fuel the job capacity that we have. Specifically girls who, after age 16, only 10% of computer science students are girls. And that's a huge challenge for bringing diversity of thought, ideas, and skills to industries like this. We've got to shift those expectations of students. We've got to empower teachers to think differently, and we have to really shift our learning canvas beyond the classroom, beyond the school. In many cases, we don't have schools and classrooms strong enough to support the opportunity and the potential of students. We've got to lean on technology to do a better job there. But we have to shift the thinking, and one of the things we need to do is really inspire youth. Certainly in the world of computer science and STEM, this is an area that we focus a lot about in the work that we do with YouthSpark. And with partnerships we have with many of the folks in the room, like City Year, we try to get connection to students to appreciate the value of STEM and what they can make and do in the world. And we've got to do that at a global scale. And we've got to empower students to have that spark of innovation, to realize their potential and demand it in them and their society. And that's the shift that we've got to do. Certainly the conversation on skills, I'm sure we'll get to, is a huge shift, because that's the focus, and we've got to bring that seed of entrepreneurship into our classroom beyond the traditional subjects that we're teaching them.